Mike, turn your games down.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another comic episode of Games My Mom Found. I am Mike Albertin, who's staying at an inn tonight with me.
Hi there, lost in the sea of realities. It's me, Kenneth Sanity.
It's Chris Dobson. I don't have a clever joke prepared.
And where can people find you, Chris?
You can find me at Your Stupid Minds or at my comic book club, the one that's not this one, which is Some of My Friends Read Comics with Vince Goodwin.
Which I had on the show recently for something I can't remember what the hell we even talked about. Oh yeah, which will not be released till May. We talked about Plague Knight. But he made a comment. He was like, "It's good you're having Chris read Sandman with you. You can get it out. He can get it out. He can get it out of off his. I forget what word he used. Get it out of his system."
Yeah.
So
I'm not bothering them with Neil Gaiman.
So we are continuing our Sandman journey, and this time we are talking about the Sandman World's End, which is Volume 8, which is another very strange volume. That's the only way for me to put it. Like, I don't know how. Like, it's one continuous story for this, but it's also like broken up stories.
Yeah, it's another anthology like Dream Country and Fables and Reflections before it.
Okay.
So
Very
that's volumes 3 and 6 for those of you keeping track at home.
Oh, I didn't even realize it's like every other one at this point. Or 3, 6. Well, not every other one, but 3, 6. We're on 8. Okay.
Yeah, this is broken up into, let's see, 5 different stories. And this collects issues 51 through 56 of the Sandman comics. So it was 5 stories and then the end.
Yeah, and it's
which is its own story.
Which wraps up what's happening in the other stories. So this was weird for me. So I read this first. I read all 6 issues, and I'm like, what the hell did I just read? And then after that, I let it sit for a day or two after I finished it. Then I went and started rereading it again, and I gave it a lot more appreciation. I actually kind of understood what was happening.
Well, that's what we're here for. We're here to talk you through it.
So the whole idea is you have this random character, God, what's his name, Brant, I think?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Who's driving cross country with his other woman that's not his girlfriend, not his roommate, just somebody who he's sharing a car with. And they end up getting into a snowstorm in June, which the way our world is doesn't seem that strange anymore sometimes with global warming. But maybe in 89, it seemed, or 90 something, whenever this came out, it seemed much more peculiar that this would happen in 1990. Because now it doesn't feel that crazy sometimes when I think about it. Like,
no, in the end of February in northeastern Illinois, we had 70-degree temperatures in the end of February. So
yeah.
And 2 days later, we had tornado, and then a day after that, snow.
Yeah, that's not weird at all.
Good thing climate change is a myth.
But I mean, that's what I thought about here. But like in 1993, that wouldn't, things weren't the way they're becoming now. Weird how 30 years can change things. But like, so the monster that runs out in front of him, is that something I should know, or just a random monster, or that whatever that thing is?
It's just not a real animal, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, that should be like your first tip. That something ain't quite, fresh in Denmark here.
Well, the snow kind of gave it away, but the weird creature that wasn't of this world did help when I'm like, all right. Or the fact that when they get into the car accident that they're not dead, where I'm like, you probably should be dead if your car wraps around a tree. So, I don't know. I've never been in a bad car accident, thank God. So,
well, Charlene is hurt and Brant is carrying her. So, like, they haven't gotten off completely scot-free.
No, they're doing pretty shitty. Like, I was just confused. I think somebody's talking to him when he's walking in the snow.
Yep. There is a voice talking to Brant in the snow, and it's kind of hard to figure out, but it's the hedgehog that pricks him in the ass and sends him on his way.
Is that hedgehog of anything important that I should know?
Nope. It's a hedgehog. It's a talking hedgehog.
It's just a talking hedgehog, I guess.
Okay. I wonder if he eats chili dogs too. That will always be. That's always be my Sonic. The fat Sonic eating chili dog.
The one voiced by Urkel?
Yes. I don't remember the voice. I haven't watched the show in a long time. I used to read the comics, the old Sonic comic.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually have a Sonic comic above my head taped on my wall. First appearance of Chaotix, because I love the Chaotix. They're awesome. But and then he finds this random inn, and I was very confused what was going on here. Like as soon as he walks into the inn, you notice right away that he's not in Kansas anymore, for lack of a better joke. And because there's things that are not human that are in this random inn.
Oh yeah, you got some sea people, you got a centaur, you got some folks that I don't know, look like they might be dead.
Oh god,
You got
yes.
some elves.
Cat people.
Yeah.
Indian people.
And everybody's just hanging
Indian
around.
from Asia, not
Yes.
Native American.
Yes. It's very interesting. Like, I was just very confused what was going on. I mean, I don't think they do it in this issue. Yeah, no, they already start talking about in this issue or no, not yet. This is the next issue when you start realizing something's not completely right here. I mean, this is where they, like, if somebody makes a comment where he's like, oh, yeah, you missed a story. Because he was sleeping for 3 days, where somebody won November 1937 in a poker game. And I'm like, I want to hear that story. It's just, and then this issue is all about some old man. Is that supposed to be Charles Dickens?
Nah, I think that's just an old guy.
Okay, because he's talking about A Tale of Two Cities, and I was like, that's what it really made me think of.
What, the first story?
Yeah. I also never read A Tale of Two Cities, by the way. So just put that out there. It just made me think of it, because, again, it's that famous book by Charles Dickens.
Yeah. Well, from what I understand, it's supposed to be the best of times and blurst of times.
That's about all I know about the book. I don't like old fiction like that.
I mean, it's a adventure book, so it's pretty good, I'll say. But it also has nothing to do with this.
Oh, all right. I was just curious because it shared the name.
This is a lot darker than that book.
Yeah, this is much more, and Gaiman admits that he was. This is a Lovecraft influenced story.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I immediately thought of Neverwhere when I read this story the first time.
Yeah, that's true.
Because Neil Gaiman has a book called Neverwhere. It's been adapted as comic, I think.
Okay, now you have
Series
my attention.
of graphic novels, but it's a London outside of the normal space of London, and this story is very similar to that.
Okay, I didn't really care for this one. This is I feel like the first time I read this, I didn't understand anything that was going on, and the second time I read it, it made a little bit more sense. One, it's all of a sudden the page layout changes, not like your normal comic book. And that kind of threw me for a loop too. It's very much text on top, picture, text on top. There's no panels. It's just, I guess there's some, but it's just very different. And I didn't really like it. I was also very confused. Like, it's about a guy who has a very mundane life, who goes to work, goes home, and that's his life. And then one day he gets on a train because he's running late from work, and the train looks different. And then there's Sandman on the train for some reason. Like, I just didn't know what to think about this one. I was very lost and confused.
Well, like, my whole thing with this story, and a reason why this is probably, if not my favorite, one of my favorite ones out of this entire book, is that it just takes a simple idea, getting lost in a place that you should know.
Okay.
And it draws it out in such a way that, okay, yeah, there's a reason you get lost in places that you know. There's a reason that everything and nothing looks familiar to you. And the whole idea is that the city itself could be sleeping and you're part of its dream. And the ending, like when he's talking to that older man, it's horrifying.
Because essentially they both got caught in the city's dream, and they've been there for years, or at least the old man has been there for years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And he's just looking for something familiar so that he can find his way out.
And then he sees a hot goth woman, but it's like his La Belle Dame Sans Merci senses start tingling, and he's like, no, I don't want that.
I'm assuming that's death, right?
I don't think it is, because it's a little different. There's no Ankh.
Oh, good point.
There's no Ankh. The face is fuller.
But it is unfortunate that there's already such an iconic goth girl in the Sandman series that I think drawing a second one that's supposed to be this sort of spooky character, you're like, but is it her? I don't think it is, though.
No, there's also too much flesh tone in the coloring.
Yeah, he's right. And there's no Ankh. I wonder what she's supposed to be, or just there's something there to lure him, to keep him in this dream, I guess.
Well, at what point do your dreams become the dreams that you're in? Like, maybe that's his dream that's starting to populate in the city's dream.
I also don't like dreams,
because he doesn't have anything. All he has is work. And it's not too ridiculous to be in a dreamscape and suddenly imagine this, perfect person that you're willing to give your body and soul over to.
That's
just in a dream.
That is
But
completely fair.
he runs away from her and then comes back in the middle of the city. He's bearded. His clothing is shreds. He's been gone a while.
That's the part that got me, because I was expecting him just to wake up at home or like just wake up somewhere and it'd be like no time had passed. Like the idea, like when you're dreaming, like, you know, you just wake up the next day. But the fact that his clothes are tattered, he has the beard, like that got me. I'm like, just a little not what I expected.
And then time passes. The person telling the story met Robert in a very small village, and he tells Robert why, or he tells the storyteller why he doesn't go in cities. That was terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, because he got trapped in a city and almost got stuck there. I mean, I like the idea how nothing makes sense. Like, it looks like places, like you were saying, looks like places but it's not the same. Like, it's just, you know, what if cities did dream?
Right. And of course, the twist though is he's not afraid he's going to get stuck in the dream again. He's afraid the city itself will wake up.
I like that.
And that's just, next time you're out and about in an urban area, just look up and be like, what if this wakes up?
I mean, I've never felt that exactly, but like when I've been to cities I try to travel sometimes, and I've been to other cities, and it's always interesting when I go somewhere that like I've never been to before, and I just walk around like a downtown, and like Chicago, for example. I've been to Chicago before, and I remember walking around from the hotel to going out to eat in a restaurant, just walking down by the river, and I'm just, you know, just looking at everything, like that idea, you know, you're in a place that you just don't know. But yeah, no, I do think about that now. Like, you know, what if the city did wake up, like, and just started moving, came to life?
How much of existence is a city's dream? How much of it will disappear if the city wakes?
It's a story I didn't appreciate at first, but I appreciated more the second reading. I just think it was a strange one to start this volume on. Does that make sense? I
think it works perfectly fine because it pretty much just focuses on the power of dreams. Because you got Morpheus who turns up
for one panel, and I think, or one page. I think I've come to appreciate when they do stuff like that with him, which is often.
Like that right there should know that, you know, you are in a dream. And yes, that is the city's dream because Morpheus is there. That's how you know it's a dream.
Makes sense. Chris, any other thoughts about this issue?
No, I already mentioned, I guess Gaiman said that the big giveaway that he wanted to make a Lovecraft story is he uses the word cyclopean, which is, you know, right up there with non-Euclidean as a word that H.P. Lovecraft used about 10,000% more than any other writer.
Before or since.
Because it's just a word that means really, really big. But it just sounds like I think Lovecraft just loved the way cyclopean just sounds inhuman in a way to describe something big. And, you know, because it's literally, you're saying it's like the Cyclops. It's very large. And so that's something that Lovecraft, again, was obsessed with, this idea of a being so powerful and crazy that you can't quite perceive it with your mind. And I think that's kind of what the idea of the city waking up is supposed to remind us of.
Okay, you guys gave me more enlightenment about this issue, and I think I do appreciate it more now. Thank you. See what you did there?
Fantastic.
Again, our job here is done.
You guys have made me appreciate this a lot more than when I started it.
Look at you.
For sure.
Appreciating movies, appreciating epic works of comic books. You're just an appreciator. That's good.
I'm pretty sure when I first read the first Sandman, I was not amused nearly enough. So it took me a while to do Dollhouse. It took me like 2 years to do Dollhouse. But and that brings us to issue 2, where he starts off with Brandt in a restroom, and I swear this guy looks dead. That comes in the room with him, whatever the hell his name is. I swear they look like they're dead. They really do.
Well, I think that's just the way they look. That's the way their people look, but they're not. They're not zombies. They're alive.
So that monkey that walks in looks familiar as a Dark Knight Metal. Is that supposed to be anybody from DC?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, okay. Top of my head, I don't know.
Okay, I was just curious because I know in Dark Knight Metal there was a random monkey at a bar, so I was just wondering if somehow they had anything to do with it.
No, this one's in full marching band regalia, and the other one was just drinking.
Yeah. But, I mean, Sandman does throw in random DC characters here and there.
Oh, yeah.
Like we're going to talk about in a little bit, so that's what I had me wondering. This story is about the drunken fairy that tells a story.
Yep. Good old Cluricon. We remember him, right?
Was he in in that really good Shakespeare issue?
I
No?
think he was in Midsummer Night's Dream, but he was first introduced in Seasons of Mist. He was part of the fairy delegation that came to the Dreaming when Sandman had the key to hell.
Oh, okay.
And his sister ended up being offered up to stay, essentially.
Okay. Yes, now I did not remember him. I did remember his sister.
Yeah.
But help that she's in this.
But in this story, Queen Mab of Fairy Realm sends Cluracan out to be an envoy, essentially. There's an alliance happening in the cities of the plains, and an alliance would not be good. So Cluracan is sent there to break it up.
I like the stuff of him traveling between the worlds where you just see like random hands reaching out to him and him like flying on his horse. Like there's some cool drawing stuff they do leading up to this. So I really appreciate it.
This one reminds me a lot of the old like adventure comics. Like it's drawn in that same kind of style. Like not quite the same as Prince Valiant, but kind of close to that.
Mhm.
If you know what I'm talking about.
I do not.
It is a very different style. And, you know, I like the juxtaposition of going back to the World's End being a lot more detailed compared to it looking very, not really cartoony, but more simplified.
Okay. It was all right. It was an okay story. Like they do make like you are right. It is kind of cartoony. Like you have the villain of this issue, some guy that runs the city that's a big fat guy with boils on his face and eats a lot and is threatening to tax the citizens more and more just because he can. And he's from God, sent from God, he believes.
Well, part of the problem with this guy is that you have somebody who runs the city, and then you have somebody who's a religious head. There are two separate people, and this guy is both of them in one person, thus showing all of us why church and state should stay separate forever.
Current America would disagree with you, unfortunately, on that sometimes. So
Current America could suck my dick. It's against the Constitution.
Yeah, I think the president should be the Pope. How about that?
That's exactly what this is.
That's a good way to put it. I don't know. I didn't like the story the first time I read it, and I almost didn't want to read it a second time. I actually wanted to skip it, but I didn't. I was just like, the whole thing is the fairy goes to this town, goes to the meeting, and why does he just all of a sudden tell the guy that he's going to get killed, essentially? Like, I didn't understand why he did that. Was he just forced to somehow?
Basically, he has a vision. Like, this is what's coming to pass. And I wouldn't know. I'm no psychic. But I would imagine when you have such things happen, you kind of want to, get them out there.
Well, I can say from watching 7 seasons of Medium that it is very common to wake up from a dream or a vision and want to tell people immediately and call a detective. That happens in Medium a lot, by the way. Good show. Okay, I didn't really realize what was happening. I did find it amusing that they knew how to stop fairies from leaving, where they chain him up with cold iron because he can't get out of that.
Yeah, well, I mean, everybody knows that.
I didn't, by the way. Oh, that's an actual myth thing that goes along with that?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's why your fairy trap is always empty. Yeah, this to me I think is the weakest story. I don't know. I maybe it's because I don't like this character, and also it's just literally that his sister shows up and he doesn't understand what's going on, and then it's like, oh, I'm in the dream, and then just sends Dream to save him, and he does, and I'm like, okay, good, great job, everybody.
We did it.
I like how Morpheus looks so different, and that idea that whoever sees Morpheus sees him as a different way.
Right, because he definitely looks more Fae-like here.
Yes, I don't like it. I don't know. I like my Morpheus the way that he looked in the other issue, with that brief second. I don't know. I just didn't like it.
I like my Morpheus looking like Robert Smith from The Cure.
Yes.
Yep. Not my
Morpheus.
Not my Morpheus.
I do like what the fairy does, is that the fairy then starts impersonating other people and spreading rumors around the town to get the town to riot on him. I did like that.
And it worked.
I mean, it would. I thought he did it all over the course of one day, too. I thought that was cool. The part that got me a little confused is, I know he ends up impersonating one of the guards. They go in the safe room that the Pope guy thinks it is. And then this dead body attacks him. Was that not real, or was that an illusion created by the fairy?
Wasn't Cluracan's.
Okay. I know he said that, but was it I was just very confused by it. Like, I didn't understand if it was something that what happened, but it was cool.
It was the prophecy coming to life.
Okay.
Sometimes shit just happens because it was foretold.
Fair enough. And then he finishes his story, and you see the guy getting eaten by the dogs, which didn't make me kind of laugh. Would make me laugh more if it was cats, because that'd be fair too.
I always love it when corrupt political figures get eaten by dogs. You heard me, America.
It was good though.
So then we get to our third story, which I love this story. Hobbes Leviathan.
I did not realize this was Hob until way later.
So good to see Hob Gadling again.
I was going to actually, when I was reading this, I'm like, I'm going to ask them if that's Hob. If that's the same guy I thought it was. I couldn't remember his last name. They don't say Hob until way later. Like, this is a story where it's a woman telling the story who disguises herself as a man because she's in the early 1900s and wants to be on a ship. This is an interesting story. I didn't mind this one.
I like this one a lot. This one's fun. Like, it's got a very, oh, hey, it's a voyage story and seaworthy, and there's a stowaway, and here's a story within the comic. Like, it's all too much.
Yeah, it's a lot in this one. I mean, I like that there's one little thing that she talks about some captain that was a shithead that was beating people up and beating her up, and then his, boat sunk. I thought that I just interesting. Like the stuff with Hob where I didn't realize it was Hob, it's just a guy that's on the, on there, they give you the last name. If you remember when, the last time we saw Hob was the third-ish? Was it third book or was it Fables?
Well, the first time his story was laid out full was in Dollhouse, I think.
Oh God, is it that long ago?
Yeah.
He did come back once, didn't he?
Yeah, he showed up. He showed up again. I don't remember.
Was it the Constantine with the head? I don't remember.
I think it was with what's her bucket, Joanna Constantine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because this story is about it's about the woman telling a story about this guy that stole away, that then told her a story because he didn't, because he's like, women are bad, essentially. So I'm taking that this Indian gentleman is the one in the story is the king, correct? Like that's what we're supposed to get from this?
Yeah, that seems to be the implication.
Interesting.
I'd even say, closer to than implication. I mean, I think that's just what it is.
I mean, it also would fit why he does not like women. So,
well, some people are just so quick to not fix their problems and blame others.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much what it was. She's like, he cheated on me, so I had her murdered. Like, you didn't have to have her murdered. Like, that was a choice. He's like, but I didn't have her tortured, so I was a good man.
Yeah, it was quickly. See, maybe he should have tortured her.
Maybe just not care that much. Like, oh, well, we're divorced. Go on your own way. Like, screw you. Like, you got to be murdered now. Yeah. I get it. This is supposed to be, a long time ago. Is that supposed to be her head on the pike that we see in the last panel? I didn't really think about that, but I'm watching the panel where you see the beggar eating the king eating the apple as a beggar, and I'm like,
It could be the captain of the guards.
Yeah, he had long hair too. Except that's red hair. Yeah, no, that's her. She got murdered and got her head put on the pike. I guess that's what happened. The stuff with Hob, I liked where he he disagrees with that. He's like, it's not women, it's the people. Like, blame the man too. I like that.
Yeah.
I mean, again, the idea that you have someone that's immortal who's lived all these lives and lived all these years, so more wise about things than this.
And that brings up a really interesting point, because if their stowaway is indeed an immortal, which he is, and we'll talk about how I know that's true, he's a relatively young one. Like, Hobbes lived so much longer than him, which is why he has, he knows that it's not the dream magic of the sea that glows, it's phosphorus and algae. Like, Hobbes been alive for so long, and this guy is relatively new to the scene. So it's why he's coming with a wiser point of view. Yeah.
And then kind of like part of the story is they see a serpent. And I guess the whole idea of them seeing the serpent just to say, like, you can't tell people what you think you see or what you saw, because if it's out of the normal, they won't believe you. It's just like the fact that when Hobbes like, yeah, I'm just gonna, that was my boat that my uncle that I owned, and now I have to say that my uncle died and I took over.
Right.
I like that.
He's coming back. He's like, oh yeah, I've been away for like 25 years or whatever, and now I'm this guy's nephew.
I mean, that's what you'd have to do. It'd be a lot. I feel like it'd be a lot harder now, but you would have to do that. You wouldn't have a choice.
Yeah.
Sorry, go
I
ahead.
was gonna say it's a cool. I just like it. I also liked where one of Hobbs' line when she asked, "How old are you, sir?" "Old enough to have learned to keep my mouth shut about seeing a bloody great snake in the middle of the ocean." I like that line.
But in the page before that, you see Hobb and the stowaway talking, and Jim's walking up and only hears part of the conversation where Hobb is saying, "You don't owe me anything. There's few enough of us around. Least we can do is watch out for each other."
Oh, okay. I did not catch that. That makes sense.
So that's how I'm pretty sure that the stowaway is immortal.
Okay.
Just younger.
Yeah. And he probably wouldn't have been killed had he been thrown in the ocean. It just would have been a very terrible fate for a while until he surfaced somewhere. Oh, it's an interesting story. I appreciated more the second reading. Chris, do you have any other thing you want to say about that comic? About that issue?
Yeah, I like it. I mean, we glossed over. So Hobb reveals that he knew that Jim was a girl and is like obviously doesn't care. He's just like, yeah, that's cool. And that's kind of part of the whole idea of like people see what they want to see, that he's able to live this lie. And he's like, you can live whatever lie you want to. People aren't going to really pay attention. But that he's old enough that he's like, yeah, pretty much the second I met you, I knew.
I did like that. I mean, and again, it makes sense if you were around. I mean, you would see other people that have done this throughout the years, especially, back then when women really didn't have rights. So, I mean, their job was just to make more humans and take care of their man.
And they're kindred spirits in that they're both gingers. So they have to look out for one another. Not just fellow immortals, but fellow gingers.
I think the next issue is my favorite.
Oh, yeah.
I think this is one that people have talked about because I mentioned it before in these where I listen to Comic Conspiracy, a lot of podcasts that I really enjoy, and I haven't done it lately, but they used to bring up a lot of Sandman, and they would bring up like random stories, like, how are they going to do the Emperor story on Netflix? I'd love to see that. And I think they mentioned the President of the United States, and I was like, okay, I don't know what the hell they're talking about, and now I do.
So, I mean, I'm guessing, but let me confirm. Had you ever heard of Prez, or do you know anything about this character before reading this comic?
Absolutely nothing.
Okay, so it may surprise you, or it may not. There was a Prez comic from DC Comics in 1973 and 1974, written by Joe Simon, the co-creator of Captain America.
Oh.
So he would have been, let's see, he was born in 1913, so 60 years old, writing about a teenager who becomes president of the United States.
Huh. Okay.
It only lasted, I think 4 issues? 5 issues. Well, so yeah. It was canceled after 4. Issue 5 was released as part of something called the Canceled Comics Cavalcade, where they basically were like, we already drew all of this. Here's all the work that we weren't able to put out. But yeah, there was only 4 issues before it was dropped. It's an insane premise. You see him in a couple of the panels, but one of his aides is just a Native American teenager. So it was an insane book. And Neil Gaiman, clearly one of the people who read that book and is like, what if I made this a thing about Jesus and America?
Huh. Okay, that's cool. I did not know it was something that, he took from something else.
Yes, it's a existing DC character that I think it's the 3rd issue. It might even be the 2nd issue. He fights Dracula. So they waste no time with the President of the United States having a war against Transylvania, and it's President Dracula.
Wow.
I mean, as it should be.
I kind of want to read this now.
It's wild. The whole book is completely insane. But yeah, so that I did, of course, like everyone else, when I first read this, I had no idea. And then later I found out that Prez existed, and I was like, oh my God, this is even better.
Huh. Okay.
It's exciting because, yeah, the whole idea is, that Prez is like, he's and I think even the Watchmaker stuff is in the original comic, although I have to double check because it blends in my brain. But it's the idea that he's just like, what if there was a teenager who just wanted to like get results? I
mean, it should be. I mean, I think it would be good if we could have younger people in office, but I don't know if I want 18, but I'd be happy.
Younger than 90? Come on.
Younger than 90 would be nice.
As a guy who works in senior care, yeah, it makes me wonder sometimes, but yeah. That's all I can say on that.
But the Prez comic book is also where Boss Smiley came from.
Oh, okay. That is, you have my attention.
He's not like this though in
No,
the comic, just so you know.
No, he's like, that's his character's name. That's it.
I'm trying to see if I could. I'm trying to see if I can find it. Oh, they made a Prez in 2015 also, by the way.
Yeah, with the guy that did the Flintstones comic, I think.
I did not think that would have been.
Huh.
Okay. That's just weird. I found it online. I found it on a website. I can read the 1973. Okay, that the cover of the first issue is straight up that scene, the panel in Sandman where he's driving with the Native American in the car.
Yeah, he's in the Cadillac or whatever with his cabinet. So it's a obvious reference if you know what it's talking about. Yeah, but he's more of a mob boss Smiley in the first issue, who's kind of like, trying to corrupt Prez into being like, yeah, I'll help you get votes on one condition. Prez is like, no. That's kind of it. Whereas, he's the devil. He literally flies him to the top of a mountain and is like, here's all the, powers of America, and they could be yours.
It's really cool.
It's not subtle, but it is cool.
I also like how he ends up with a story that the guy Brandt is not even downstairs. He's just he runs into a random guy sitting upstairs that wasn't there before, who asks him like, "Where are you from?" "I'm from the United States." "Who's president?" "Who was president before him?" "Ah, that United States." Like, I like that. Like this idea that there's all these different Americas and different realities.
Right.
But no, like the Boss Smiley stuff, I like the fact that like he's like, oh yeah, people wear his symbol. Like, and again, this would have been the 90s. I feel like the smiley face was, I don't see it much anymore, but I remember growing up in the 90s seeing it. Like people had it on shirts and stuff more often back then.
Yeah, like it was bigger in the 70s.
I wasn't alive then.
I know, neither was I.
Yeah, it was around in the 90s as a 70s like throwback.
Yeah, and Forrest Gump.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
But I like the idea of Boss Smiley as this just criminal, and the fact that like his face is also like two-dimensional kind of when you see him a couple times. Like it isn't how it should be. I don't know. It's cool. I mean, I like that they drew. I love when they draw Nixon in these comics. It's just a big. You can always tell it's Nixon. Yeah, I love that. He's
got a really easy face to make like a caricature of.
I love it. I can't get over that this is actually a character from the 70s. I'm not surprised. I'm also I'm a little surprised that I actually found the comic online.
Yeah, I think it's on like DC Infinite and like online services. Like they don't hide that because they made that remake in 2015 or whatever, that Boss Smiley appears in that as well.
It didn't run that long, by the way. We could believe that.
Again, like they're great. But anyway, so yeah, it's the story of a child president, or I guess teen president, who solves most of the problems himself in his first term, basically by just putting his mind to it and like not being crooked. Like that's all you got to do.
One of my favorite panels is when it talks about when he wins the election, and it says a baby was born to a couple in New Haven, Connecticut, with a birthmark in the shape of the USA on her back. During a 42nd Street screening of hot teenage love sluts, the climatic sex scene was interrupted by the couple replacing their clothes and performing highlights from Guys and Dolls to an outraged audience. Like, it just cracked me up.
Well, I mean, that basically is Second Coming of Jesus stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but and it's also like I think Neil Gaiman having a little fun with Americans, like because it's making fun of American culture as just this sort of like crude and stupid, not sophisticated like Benny Hill and such.
Oh, I also forget that porn theaters were a thing at one time. I forget about that, so it makes me laugh too. Oh, it was just, I can't get over that freaking panel straight from that comic. I kind of want this first appearance now. It's Prez, first teen president of the USA, #1. I think I'm going to try to find that.
It's available. It's probably only like $10 or something. I don't think it's that valuable.
Oh, I just love first appearances, especially random ass first appearances.
Yep. And well, Prez is pretty random. So yeah. Prez, he runs again, and Boss Smiley comes to him again and is like, oh, now that we could really, basically tries to get him to join him, and he's like, are you threatening me? And he's like, no. And then Prez reveals that he had basically intelligence agencies look into him and he doesn't exist.
I like that. I mean, that makes him... I mean, I feel like that happens in real life. There's a really good documentary I was watching on Netflix. Oh, fuck, what the hell is it called? It's about a religious organization that had ties to like all these different presidents and things. And like one guy did. I can't remember the name of it now. But it's called The Family. And that's what it reminded me of. But I like the idea that he doesn't like, there are no documents, even though he obviously exists. He obviously is around. But what, you don't think so?
I mean, he is like the devil of this world. I mean, he can just appear and disappear. I mean, he literally floats away from the party he's at.
Yeah.
So it's just like, he doesn't necessarily have to have like a day job. Like he's just a presence in this world.
That's fair.
And he's basically like a trickster type character.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
It does.
Also, I found your issue 1 of Prez for like $10 on eBay.
Same. There's a part of me that's thinking about it.
That was my prediction for what it would cost you. I'm like, it's 50 years old now, so it's not going to be $1 anymore. But it probably was $1 until like 10, 20 years ago. I'm
going to try to find... I don't go to comic stores much anymore, but I do go to conventions. And maybe it'll give me a reason to dig through P-books and to see if I can find it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love, especially if you find one of those like Silver Age, it's like 50% off. I've got a couple of those like Superman where, it's like, I hope that Superman appreciates the gift I give him, and Superman's like burning it with his heat vision. It's like, I've always laughed at these. They're like $5. I'll take them.
I enjoy collecting random and hey, this won't be a wall book. So this will just be in a random long box, being like, I guess I have a copy of this crap. And then I like how you see him. He's about to get. I think he gets a wife. Yeah, he marries somebody, and then it shows her assassinated, and the woman that kills her, which I think is supposed to be a reference to the guy, the person that shot. Was it Reagan? Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Because he was trying to get
Jodie
attention.
Foster.
Yeah, I like it that she has a Wildcat shirt on, so it's a reference to a DC character that no one cares about.
Yes, Justice Society member Wildcat is who she was trying to impress.
I only know about him because he was on Justice League Unlimited. The only reason I even knew he was a character.
Yeah, he shows up like in enough comics that I know who he is, but yeah, it's not like I've read a bunch of Wildcat comics. I prefer the Wildcats with it's an abbreviation of something. I don't know.
Is that the Jim Lee one?
Yeah, they're like the X-Men, but edgy and for the 90s.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's the one with the guy with like a red mask and like blonde hair and a green jacket.
Yeah, Grifter. Everybody loves Grifter.
Yep,
I think I had a figure of Grifter, even though I had no fucking idea who he was.
Grifter is the most edgelord character of that time period. Like,
you're like, Gambit, that's for normal people. There's a much cooler guy on the scene now.
These straws don't seem very crazy to me. I like Grifter.
I like Gambit a lot.
Yeah, I mean, Gambit's a similar school of design where nothing individually makes any sense about his costume or his look, but he's cool, so who cares?
Yeah. Anyway, you see throughout this comic, you see Wildcat just drinking.
Yep.
And the president or Prez just, he served his 2 terms and now he just fixed his clock and then travels around the country. Oh, it was interesting. I didn't catch it, but yeah, it really is like a Jesus-like figure idea.
What is it with DC Jesus figures playing with watches?
They love it.
Prez, you got Dr. Manhattan. Like, it's weird.
Like, I feel like it's not that complicated of a reason because he mentions it to Death. Where he's like, so there is a watchmaker, because that's the whole idea behind, is it deism, or I forget which, sort of philosophy it's based on. That it's like, if you see a watch in the desert, you assume that there is a craftsman, that it's not just random, that this thing that's so complex just happened to be, next to a bunch of sand. And that similarly, I guess, the complexity of life is supposed to show that there is a sort of guiding, even if they're not doing anything, watchmaker guy. So, and then in The Sound and the Fury, which is a book that, from American literature that I don't think kids have to read anymore.
Oh, from Faulkner, right?
Yes. But that kid, I believe, is obsessed with watches and like the idea of like how that plays into fate. And I feel like those two things are what Alan Moore does in Watchmen, is because he's jumping around in time in Watchmen, based, I think, on Sound and the Fury. And then, this is just, he literally is calling out like oh yeah, is this guy God? And then Death is like, you should meet him first. Probably not.
So I have a question. When Death says we met before once, I was confused what she was talking about. Like, I wondered if that's something I was supposed to catch that I didn't.
I think it's just the death of his fiance that
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
he has
Like
known
it was-
death through his loss of a loved one like this.
Oh, okay. I like seeing Death again. I always like seeing her. She's awesome.
And then we skipped over. Boss Smiley offers. He's like, "Oh, bring your dead fiance back, and all you have to do is like swear to me." And he's like, "No, like this is a dream. Go away." And then when he gets to like heaven, he's like, "So is my fiance here?" And he's like, "No."
She went away.
What a piece of crap.
But I also was thinking that Smiley's face looks so much different here, but it's supposed to be the same character, correct? Like
Yeah,
the same. Okay,
yeah.
he just has a smiley face instead of the ugliest face he had earlier.
Well, you can't go down to parties looking like that.
Yeah, this is more his true form.
Okay.
And
It's
yeah,
cool.
this is they kind of set it up like he's the head of this like tiny little, heaven of this whatever, but then Perez is able to basically like get out of it somehow. That Dream is like, I like this guy. Get him out of here.
My
I did
sister
like
told
that.
me about him. I like this guy.
That Dream shows up and he gives the watch to Dream. So does Prez ever show up again besides the 2015 comic? Like, was this something that, or just like a one-off thing in Sandman like they like to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's Gaiman's. We've talked about some of the obscure characters like the Sandman, the Jack Kirby version that he likes to bring back. So I think it's just another one of those completely forgotten 70s characters.
Okay.
Yeah. And he does show up in other things. Like he shows up in an episode of Batman Brave and the Bold. Like he shows up in other comic books. But this is, I'm pretty sure this is his only Sandman appearance.
Okay. And that brings us to the next issue. This is another story I didn't really care for. So this is idea. I mean, there's little stuff that goes on before that I like, where Brant's counting the thunder and how close it is. Because as they kind of mentioned throughout that they all end up randomly at this World's End because there's a reality storm going on, and all these people went through different events that then brought them to this random inn. And this is a case where I cared more about what was going on. I didn't care about this guy's story. This guy that lives in a city that essentially is a necropolis, where their whole point of existing is to take care of people's dead.
Yeah. And I don't know why, but every time I read this story, I just get incredibly emotionally involved. Like, I don't understand it. I really
You're a goth
don't.
at heart.
Mm-hmm.
But like, there's a whole city out there whose sole purpose is to care about those who have gone. And I think that's really cool. It's sweet.
Like I said, the goth inside you was excited.
Yeah, probably.
Hey, I don't remember seeing. Were there shirts of this back in Hot Topic in the good old days?
No, nobody
Sandman
really
shirt?
talks about this one.
I didn't think so. Were there even Sandman shirts at Hot Topic back then?
Not really.
I don't think so. They should have been.
There really should have been.
I just want more Funko Pops of Sandman, damn it. I have the only one there is, which is Death. From the last time we did this, I ordered immediately. So this, I don't know. I didn't really like this one. I mean, I think it's interesting, like the idea that they talk about the different ways, and the whole idea is that this one character was getting rid of a body by air, where they're essentially feeding it to the birds to get rid of the body. And so while they're waiting, they're all telling different stories. And they're all like little short stories in the story.
And we have more stories within stories.
Yeah, like the first one about a guy that was going to be hung for digging up dead bodies, but he's like, hey, I'll hang people instead. I'll be your hangman. And it's interesting, like the deal is as soon as he can no longer do it, he's going to be hung himself.
Mm-hmm.
He tricks them by being tied up in a rope. So he's using the rope to, and looks that he's, can walk.
Yeah, I mean, technically he was hung, and he died that night.
I thought that was a good little story. I didn't catch the first reading. So the second one talks about a wanderer that came through the town.
Oh.
And I was reading the second time, I'm like, I know who that is.
That's our boy.
God, what the hell's his name?
Destruction.
Okay. Yep. I knew, because at first time I read it, who the hell is this wanderer? The second time I read it, like, wait a second. I know who that is.
Yep, just out doing his thing.
I really like little nods that they do in this, just random. Like when the guy talks about how there used to be another city and that these people came and then argued about it and then made the city disappear. It's all the Endless, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I thought that
Well, at
was
least Destiny's there.
okay. Were the other people endless?
See, I'm struggling right now to recognize them.
Well, here, I can't save it. There's a panel I'm looking at right now in that issue that I think, because there's two panels. One that where you see them from their faces and they look nothing like what we think of them and what we have seen of them. But if you look at the panel where you see their backs, that's the one that has me thinking that it is them.
Yeah.
Which I'm going to share into chat for the three people that are sitting, two other people that are sitting that are talking to me in this chat. But that's what I'm thinking. It has to be. I mean, you see Destiny obviously by the cloak and everything.
And reading more into this, apparently it's Destiny destroyed the necropolis for not honoring the traditions for the first Despair's death.
First Despair? What?
Yeah.
What? You have my attention, sir.
Yeah.
Should I know this?
Well, they did talk about it. There was a first Despair in passing. It is talked about more in Endless Nights.
Okay.
But there was a previous Despair.
Okay. And the faces that you see are the people in the necropolis that are then murdered. It's the background you can see at the back of the head. You can tell it's death, destruction, Morpheus, I guess Desire.
Yep, Desire's there.
Delirium.
Yep.
Maybe she wasn't Delirium yet, but I don't know.
She's
That's
probably
cool.
still Delight then.
I did not catch that's what it was at all. I just saw that Destiny was there and I was very confused. But that makes more sense. Okay. And it also makes sense because the storyteller is one of the Endless, so.
Mm.
The next one is about a woman who worked with the man that we saw earlier that had a withered hand and talks about her apprentices and how she died, I guess. I don't know. I didn't really care for this little short story within a story.
It's all about the importance of having faith.
Oh, I did not catch that. See, I'm glad I read things twice. It's still, like, I feel like Salmon, you can read multiple times and still not, yeah.
Oh, yeah. 100%. Like, this is how it's important to have faith, and she did find her faith at the end because her hand had been restored.
Oh, okay.
So, it's interesting. And this is where Petrifex laments that he doesn't have any stories. And this is why he makes his choice at the end. We're not there yet.
No, the next issue. Yeah. But he just finishes the story, then the master tells him to shut up, pretty much. And then and then this is when Brant finally asks for an explanation of what's going on with these storms and where are they. Because also earlier, which I didn't talk about during Hobbs' story, Jim makes a comment where she's like, it's 1914. Like, what are you talking about? And they just kind of blow. They're like, continue your story. Don't worry about what he's saying. So I thought that was good. And this is when the innkeeper starts to explain that about this bar, and then worlds end and worlds begin again, and people end up here.
Yeah, the innkeeper whose shadows of her arms seem to indicate that she has more than two arms.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I did not catch that.
Yeah, I know. What's up, Sheba?
Oh, that's who it's supposed to be.
Or Kali.
Okay. That's cool.
I think it's probably Shiva.
Yeah, I think so too.
That's really cool. I did not think about that.
Because there's not murdering here. Like,
yes.
Like Kali was very much war and destruction. This is more of a nurturer.
Yeah, because she's just running the bar, and she's like, I had other jobs before this, but this is what I do now.
Yeah.
So I was also wondering, in this last issue, you start seeing that there's a lot more people in the bar, and that the bar is much bigger. Were those, like, people in the crab suits supposed to be from anything from DC also?
People in the crab suits.
That's what they look like. They look like people in crab suits, like lobster suits with barnacles on their heads.
I don't know what that's from.
Okay, the way Neil Gaiman is, he likes to do shit like that. So.
I think they got to be from
something. It looks like it.
I do like how the woman that's been here the whole time points out, she's like, none of these stories involve women. I mean, the woman is just there to be rescued. There's no, like, the woman is never the center stage. I thought that was cool. I mean, she was right, too. So I think that's kind of what it's going for also, like, the whole idea that it's all these men. I mean, even Jim, who's a woman, who's, disguised herself as a man because of it's the year 1914, so she's like, it doesn't count. You're pretending to be a man, so it's just cool. And they look out the window because there's just them kind of complaining about what's going on and confused and talking about the tavern. And then when they do see the funeral, I was very, very confused at this. The first time I read it, the second time I read it. Oh, one other thing I want to make comment. Somebody makes comment about Fiddler's Green in here too, which made me laugh.
Yep.
I forget what issue, but they talk about Fiddler's Green. I'm like, ah.
I think that was back in Hobbs' story. Hobbs
okay, you go to
Leviathan.
Fiddler's Green when you die or something.
Yeah. where like the good sailors go to die when they die.
I appreciate it. So the funeral procession, I was looking back at this today when I read it, and I was like, I recognize some of these characters.
You know the first one.
My Destiny.
Yeah.
Oh, I knew Destiny. Yeah, I don't know who's the pallbearers are on the coffin. Couldn't tell.
Well, one of them looks like Lucian.
Oh, yeah. And then you start seeing more of the funeral procession. That's supposed to be that jack-o'-lantern guy that's in the dream world. I see a Pumpkinhead.
Yep, Merv Pumpkinhead.
I don't recognize who's on the horse.
That is Queen Mab from the fairy.
From the earlier story?
Yeah.
Is that supposed to be Lucifer, the angel?
I think so.
Could be.
Okay. I know there's definitely Despair.
There's Bast.
Oh, the cat god.
Mm-hmm.
There's Matthew the Raven.
I think that's Thor in the background with the big hulking brute man.
Okay. Is that supposed to be the Emperor of the United States? The guy with the hat?
Looks like it.
Yeah.
There's Fiddler's Green. Oh, what the hell is the big...
Martin Tenbones.
Yes, from Barbie's Dream.
Yep.
The dog.
And
So,
then you
like-
see that's definitely Death and Delirium with the bloody moon in the background.
Yeah.
I like how he's drawn to her, though.
Oh, he just absolutely falls in love with her at first sight.
Oh, I have no idea who's in that... Oh, I have an idea who's in that coffin. I don't like it, but I don't really know what the hell's going on.
I'm pretty sure you know who's in that coffin.
The Undertaker.
I'm guessing it's Morpheus. So...
I'm pretty sure it's The Undertaker.
Eh.
It took a second before I got that joke, Chris.
After the casket match.
It's been a long... I mean, the funny thing is I actually never watched wrestling in the 90s, but I had friends that loved it, and that somewhere you awoke an old memory from deep in my brain that was like, oh, yeah.
I love wrestling.
Never a fan, but my friends loved it. I was like, this is stupid.
Yeah, it is.
They love the Attitude Era. They're like, this is great. I'm like,
Oh.
cool.
It's so dumb.
I know.
It's horrible stupid.
I think it's actually good. Yeah, that a sumo man put a zombie in a casket and he floated up to heaven.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Will I get an answer to what happened in the next in Kindly Ones?
Yes.
That's the beginning of what happens.
Okay.
You will find out who the kindly ones are. So that will answer some questions.
Oh, yeah.
The only thing I know is a long time ago, Ken made a comment. He's like, yeah, Kindly One, that's a straight horror story.
It is definitely the most horror story out of all of these, I think.
Yeah. I mean,
Of course.
Dollhouse, that's moments.
The question is, which characters from the video game Hades are they?
I didn't think about that. I actually never played Hades either. I should play that game one day.
You
You
should.
should. It's really
I own
good.
it.
Hell of a game.
And yeah, I'm not kidding. Those characters do appear in that game.
They do.
Okay. And then this is when the storm finally ends, because essentially the reality storm, because of whatever happened to the person in the coffin, I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm.
I do like it that Charlene doesn't want to go back and she stays at the inn, and they're like, well, you can... Oh, okay, this is when you see the shadow of the innkeeper has more than two arms.
Yep.
That's cool. I like this. Then she stays there, Brant leaves along with everybody else, and Brant was at a random bar in the 90s, and he's like, yeah, I woke up and the car was in my name, and she doesn't exist.
Yeah. Not only does she not exist, she never existed.
That's fucking good.
That's one of my favorite tropes. Somebody getting just erased from existence, past, present, and future. It sounds so cool.
Yeah, it reminds me of one of my favorite Astro City stories where a guy wakes up and his wife never existed. And after being like really despondent about it for a long time, he meets like some superhero. They're like, yeah, we had some like cosmic event and reality changed in a few small ways. And unfortunately, your wife never exists. But I can give you the memory of her, so you'll at least know that you're not crazy. And it's that humanity of like, yeah, in a world of DC comics where, you're shooting someone to impress Wildcat, that it's just like, yeah, you never know. Stuff like this could be happening in their world.
Yeah, I mean, you don't think somebody would be killing, her Wildcat, but hey. All the characters in DC, and that's the one you want to impress? Okay.
Stranger things have happened.
I also like how the bartender's just like, I believe you. I don't know why, but I believe you. It's just really cool, and it just shows the effect on his life. He's like, yeah, I don't drive anymore. He's like, I thought it was just really, it was interesting. I mean, I've never been a bartender, but I know you know, as a bartender, you must get just random ass stories that, like, you know, that happen, that people talk about.
As
And
a
just-
bar patron, yeah, absolutely. You know that just by going there.
Yeah,
I don't go to bars.
shaggy dog stories are like, yeah, I'm sure that happened. You almost were going to be the star of that TV show. If only they hadn't called someone else at the last second.
Mhm.
The only time I go to bars is when I go with my wife and her friends and they're drinking, and I'm just, hell, last time I was at a bar, I was playing Breath of the Wild in 2 different bars on my Switch.
Oh,
Wow.
She got a little irritated.
well, that's interesting. So apparently in 2000, there was a 4-issue little mini-series all about Petrifax and his adventures.
Huh.
That's cool.
Well, good for him. I do think so. We mentioned H.P. Lovecraft as an influence on the Cities one. I think because Neil Gaiman has talked so much about another author, I think it's a reference to Gene Wolfe, who wrote some like sci-fi fantasy stuff. But specifically, he wrote a book called Book of the New Sun, and it's all like the main character comes from the Guild of Torturers, and so he's an apprentice torturer, and he's just like constantly, he's describing how he wears all black, and how he's learns the art of how to tear up bodies, but in a scientific, and he's like, oh, my master tells me how to do this and this and this. I think there's a lot of that in the DNA of that story, the sort of like medieval guild system stuff, and also just the underplaying, like, yeah, this is just our normal, is that everything is spooky town.
Good old spooky town.
Like a Halloween town, almost. Speaking of Hot Topic.
Fucking hate Halloween Town. I played a lot of Kingdom Hearts and Oogie's Revenge, and I really don't like that song anymore at all. Oogie's Revenge is a very interesting PS2 game, but you will hear this is Halloween. So every time you're in a fight, you will hear that song and you will learn to hate it. You will not be happy with your life.
Joke's on you. I'm already not.
Right, and I think, and that's World's End, and then that brings us the next, which would be Kindly Ones, which is 13 issues.
Yeah, it's a big boy.
So, and we will do that some point sooner than later, because I need to get to the end of these. So
We're so close.
we really are. Yeah, we should go to Shelf Stacker Box. And Chris, why don't you go first?
I enjoy these. I think this is some of Gaiman's. I think some of the earlier one-off stories were more hit and miss. There's a few that I can barely remember in my head, but I can remember all of these except maybe the fairy one. That's the weakest, but I really like all of these stories. So yeah, this is definitely a shelf.
Okay. And Ken.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go shelf for me on this one, too. All the stories individually, like you said, yeah, Cluracon's Tale, little bit of a wet fart. But, like, just the sheer terror of those last 3 lines of A Tale of Two Cities stuck with me forever. Hobbes' musing of, philosophizing over thousands of years stuck with me. The ridiculous story of Jesus President stuck with me. The story of the necropolis, for some reasons, every time, it emotionally hits me.
I think I know why, sir. I really believe what I said earlier.
Not just because I'm goth. People who don't know you having a respect for you and caring when other people don't, like that's emotional. That's good stuff. We need more of that in this world. But yeah, 100% shelf this bad boy.
Okay, I'll go last. I'm going to put it in the stack. I enjoyed it, but it didn't really grab me. It wasn't until the second time that I appreciated it more, because at first I was not real fond of it. But I'm glad I read it finally. I'm really glad to be moving my way along to the Sandman. And I be sooner than later that we read Kindly Ones. I need to finish Damn Sandman. All right, I think that's it. And Chris, where can people find you at?
So again, you can find me at Some of My Friends Read Comics with Vince Goodwin, or at my bad movie podcast, Your Stupid Minds. I'm not sure when this episode will release, but I'm sure that by the time it has, you can listen to our reviews of the worst of 2023, as well as our episode on Madam Web, Sony's latest entry to follow up Morbius. Is it worse than Morbius? Yeah, pretty much. But it's more fun than Morbius. So it's if you want to hear us talk for an hour or so about a very silly movie and a very silly bunch of comic book characters. Check it out.
All right. And if you enjoyed this episode, you will see the rest of our Sandman stuff in the show notes. Otherwise, you can go on Podbean and search whatever you want. We do tons of different things on there, so definitely go check out our giant catalog. You can find everything we do on, like I said, on Podbean. You can just type in the search bar. If you want to support the show, as little as $1 you vote our Patreon, you will see the link in the show notes. Every month we have at least one poll, sometimes two. So definitely go help support the show. And we have Discord. Please join our Discord. You see a link in the show notes. We chat with them. We're always happy to have new people join that. And when you've shot on my awesome intro and outro, courtesy of Helena at Hell Haster, you can follow her on TikTok, Twitch, Instagram. Definitely go check her out. And shout out to Bill Tucker, a Gamer Looks at 40. He just came back in March. So he's back to produce an episode. Definitely go check him out. Really good show. And check out Nomads of Fantasy and the 10 Domain Podcast. And please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, TikTok, YouTube, audio only, and review us wherever you get your podcast. It helps a lot, the algorithm. And I think that's everything I need to say, so we will see you guys all next time. Bye, everybody.
So long.